Right, hi everyone. First thing I'm going to try and do is add Leandra to my live. So while you're all arriving, I'm going to fiddle about a little bit. Okay. Right, Leandra, you're there. I can see you and I've sent you the invite. It worked.
It did.
I can see people arriving already. Nice to see you all.
It did. Okay, I'm just sharing it as well. Welcome, Kate.
But for those people who are already just joining us, I think we should share how long we spent yesterday afternoon trying to get side by side in the live. It can be so glitchy.
Well,
and
yeah, it was what, 2 or 3 hours?
Yeah, but hey, it worked. Here we are, look, side by side.
I know. Well,
Yay,
welcome to Paper Artsy, Kate, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
it's so
really
nice to see
so
you.
many people joining already.
Yeah, I'm just going to try and share it a little bit while they're coming in. So for people who don't know, I'm Leandra from Paper Artsy, and this is Kate Crane, and Kate is our newest designer, which is just absolutely fabulous, and we're so thrilled to have you with us.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Kate. Like, how did you even get into crafting and stamping?
You know, it's a funny thing. So I've been doing it probably since about 2008. And back in those days, for those of you who can remember, it was just starting on the internet. And people started trading little cards and things in groups. So not even on Facebook, but in groups. And that's how I got into it.
There were Yahoo groups.
There was all sorts of little groups and little art groups. And I got into it sort of that way. And then originally did a few designs for Stampatique in America. And then later moved to...
I've just heard yesterday, Ketzelcraft has...
Absolutely, they've sold on, yeah. And then obviously moved to Carabel Studio, where a lot of people will know me from. And they finished in December. And so here we are now, moving on.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Well, I mean, it is funny, isn't it, how we go in different sort of walks along the way. But I'm just really thrilled that we're able to bring your products
I'm thrilled to be here. And actually, I've had such a warm welcome from the Paper Artsy team. I know I'm in very, very good company with some other amazing designers. And I have to say, yourself and Mark have been very supportive, because designing is essentially the same process, but in a different company it's quite different. So there's different routes, and there's been quite a lot to learn. So it's been tremendous, actually. It's given me an awful lot of help. So
yeah, no, that's fine. We you know, that's what we do. We try to just, I mean, it's a weird thing, and people probably don't realize, but you know, designers that work with us are all freelance. Everybody's free to do as they wish and to come and go as they please, and to release as honestly as regularly as, you know, as they want to. And so it's kind of a two-way street. It's a real path to juggle, because some people are juggling day jobs and other things in their lives, or it's just they're not going to, you know, that's not the right time to be full-time as a crafter, and others are full-time out there teaching everywhere, which is what you do, isn't it? You often teach at Art from the Heart, and you've done quite a lot online teaching, and
also demoing at shows. Yes. I meet a lot of people when I'm demoing at shows, and quite often the next time you do the same show, you see similar faces that are coming back to see what you're doing. So yeah, I meet a lot of people that way as well.
Oh, that's really cool.
I'm just kind of got one eye on my iPad. I see lots and lots of familiar names popping up there.
Oh, that's great.
Thanks for the support, everyone.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. So good to see so many people. So thanks for joining us. I haven't actually even really seen many of the names, but bonjour, bonsoir tout le monde for all the French people joining us. And désolé, je parle juste un peu de français. C'est pas possible pour moi. Je parle totalement en français. C'est pas possible. Mais allez à notre boutique Tutincoll ou Kerodok Création en France. Tous les produits sont disponibles avec Tutincoll et aussi avec Kerodok. Okay, so I'm Leandra from Paper Artsy, and it's my really bad attempt at speaking French, but we're getting there. I'm just welcoming people because I know there are lots of French people who will be joining this live, and I don't have Dunia here translating. I didn't even think to do that, but I'm sure that you can utilize the Facebook translate option, and if you have a question in French, please ask it in the comments, because we do have plenty of French English speakers in the comments who will be able to answer your questions. Okay,
I can see. So can I just say, I can see so many familiar names popping up here, and I haven't got a chance to time really to greet everyone. But thank you so much for joining us, and also thank you for your positivity on Facebook, where we've been sharing the news. The feedback's been lovely, and it's heartwarming. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, it's been absolutely lovely. Okay, now we decided to have quite a sizable release for Kate with this release, because she teaches, and our designers always rely on having products to teach with, because that's important for us. Education is a huge part of the whole philosophy here at Paper Artsy, and so we like our designers to release products, and they're available exclusively at the shops. So don't go looking on the Paper Artsy website to find new products. They won't be there. We are always 4 to 6 months behind our stockists, so they don't go on our website until the stockists have had them for that period of time. So if you're looking to buy Kate's products, there's 2 ways you can find the stockist list. I'll share it in the chat soon, but it's also on the blog post, which you should have seen, and it's linked in Paper Artsy People, and it's all over our social media. And so those are the obvious places where you can find the stockist list. But please find a stockist in your country. It's part of the whole sustainability thing, that you buy local, that you support an independent retailer, that you can get the products faster and cheaper by ordering online within your own country from an independent retailer. And we want those retailers to be with us so that you can go and touch and feel products and, you know, enjoy classes with them, because they do so many classes with our products and other brands. And tonight, the stockists that have managed to join us live will be putting their links to their websites, to their Paper Artsy product listings for the Kate Crane release. So if you want to find a product, that's the easiest way, is to have a look through the chat. And obviously down under, people, it's like 4 in the morning, I think, in Australia, or 4:30 or something, because of daylight saving. So, you know, if they're up now, they're really keen, but if they usually join the replay and add their links to the replay. Okay, so thank you everyone. Right, Kate and I are going to try and flip our cameras down.
Yeah,
if we can.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with stencils. Yep. And I've got lots of samples to show, and also I think quite important, I've got a lot of part done samples, so backgrounds that I've been working on. And I always have this, I was just demoing at Port Sunlight show at the weekend, which means I've got lots of extra backgrounds and things, but I think it's quite nice to see some work in progress as well as the finished samples. So I'm going to start with stencils, then I'm going to work through the minis and show some little examples with those, and then up to the final big stamp sets. But of course there is some crossover, because some of the stamps, like my essential marks, is kind of on everything. So there is some crossover there. Right, I'm going to flip my camera now. So sorry if this makes everyone a little bit travel sick for a minute.
And so the way it's going to work is I'll have the products on my screen, and Kate will have the samples on her screen. Yeah. That's the plan anyway.
Oh, right. Okay, so it takes me a little minute to do this. I'll do my best.
Oops. And if you follow me regularly, you know that I'll be balancing on the box of tissues. So oh, look at my desk. That's terrible. Okay, we need to get lower. You don't need to see all the rubbish on my desk. Hang on a minute. And there's the tissues. Not needed tonight.
Okay, it's a bit of a miracle. I think I've even got my camera the right way up.
Yeah.
And the word's reading the right way.
All right, we did it.
Woohoo!
All that practice. Okay, Ben's just joined us from Out from the Heart. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Ben, if you've got a class coming up with Kate, feel free to share the link to that, because I'm pretty sure you've got her teaching there very soon, from what I remember you telling me.
Yeah, and they're regular, but Art from the Heart, that's like my local part.
So
okay, so I've got all my
off you go.
samples here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to put these to one side, and then we can start looking at individual ideas and samples to go with the stencils. Now I just did get a couple of things ready. I think it's really interesting sometimes to share where ideas for designs come from. So this one actually, you see this in my journal. So I quite often just sit pattern making, and I think you can see where that little image has become this stencil. So I quite often use things that I've already got in my journals, and then kind of work on them, and they develop and become ideas. So this is PS426, the little floral design. I'm going to share some of the backgrounds that I've done with this. Now, I've used a variety on all of my samples today. I've used a variety of infusions, frescoes. I've used the new matints. So you'll see in my samples a mixture of all sorts, actually. But these are all of the backgrounds I've created using this one here. So it's quite a delicate floral design, and you can get some quite, you can see I've already chopped this one to use, but you can get some really kind of clear pattern on there. This is with alcohol inks on the gel press, but I've also been playing quite a lot with infusions. Now I like infusions because they're a little bit unpredictable, and I like things that are unpredictable, and these are very watery, so it does give you this kind of quite gentle background, and this one is even more subtle. Sometimes you need subtle. You can't always put colourful images on really colourful backgrounds. Now I'm going to find just a couple of samples. You'll have to bear with me, I've got so many samples.
So Kate, with the alcohol inks on the stencil, how does, is there a simple 2-second explanation of how that works, how you do that, like your process?
Yeah, it's super easy. You put your stencil straight onto the gel press. Because the gel press is quite sticky, it holds it perfectly in place. Tip a little bit of alcohol ink through. Now the alcohol ink travels underneath actually, so you touch the nozzle to the edge of the stencil, you allow that alcohol ink to spread underneath, leave it to dry a little while, lift the stencil, and then I just use some of the white frescoes to put a wet layer on top of paint and just took a print. But the nice thing is you've then got alcohol on the stencil which you can then flip and do your pickup prints. And the more pickup prints you do, the more subtle they get. They get a little bit more watered down, and you also get really funky color combinations and things happening.
Right.
We can perhaps do a little demo of that technique.
We should do a fun Friday.
One of the main problems is putting too much alcohol ink on and flooding it. So it's always, less is more. But if you have a look on this little sample here, you can possibly see that design underneath. So my art is always multi-layered. There's so many layers. Nothing's difficult. There's just a lot of layers. So this one underneath has actually got something like that directly underneath, and then built with lots of layers on top.
Beautiful.
So if we move on to the next stencil.
Okay.
So if you've got the mark stencil.
So that's PS426, which is the Pretty Flourish stencil, and the next stencil is PS427, which is the mark making stencil?
Oh, this is going to be the go-to. This is going to be the stencil I think that I use on everything. So this has got my all of my standard marks on here. These kind of appear on everything. So let me see if I can show you some examples. So some of my bigger journal page here, straight away you can see the little crosses here. You can see some of the circles here. It's going to be a go-to. So a lot of my layers, I've got so many layers in my samples, and they're not really the standout. They're not the bit that you look at the end, but you would miss them if they weren't there. Those are all the lovely marks that help you to build up that background. Now this one is an example. I started this when I was demoing at a show at the weekend, but you can see it really clearly on here. So you can see the crosses, you can see these little marks here. Yeah, there's so, and then crosses, but in a coloured paint. So easy to build up the background. I've also got these little yellow circles on here, and that was just sponging the Frescoes paint through the stencil to build up layers on that actually really simple braid background. Okay, so lots and lots of layers.
Question, a little question there from Sarah asking, do you use blending solution? Sorry, this is a delay. There's a slight delay, Sarah. So do you use blending solution on the alcohol inks when you're using them with the stencils?
No, and actually I did this one all with paint.
Okay, yeah,
that is all with paint. But if I put alcohol inks on the gel press, no, I don't use blending solution. We can possibly do a little live with that technique sometime, because when I'm demoing at trade shows, it's the one thing I get asked about every time. I get pulled back to it every time. It's quite a wow but easy technique, so we can perhaps do a little bit on that at some point. But just back to this mark making one, like I said, you will see it on everyone because it's the standard go-to. So you can see it here, look, and actually these little crosses, so there's the straight cross and the diagonal cross, and if you do a little white pen doodle, they almost become these little daisy shapes. So I do that a lot. You'll see that in most things, and you can see all the circles there too. And then this one,
so that would be the Uniball white pen,
yeah, or a
Signo.
Posca, anything like that really. Yeah, I do a lot of scribbling on top layers with the white pen. Now this one here, I'm very fond of adding quite bold black on top of bright colour, because the minute you put black on, it actually makes your colours pop more. It grounds everything, but it really makes the colours pop. You've got to be quite bold to do it, but once it's on, you see here these little marks here, straight through this bit of the stencil there, just sponging it through with a little bit of cut and dry foam.
Lovely.
So I think that's going to be one of my really kind of go-to stencils for everything.
Yeah, super handy.
Really,
and it's also
really
great
handy.
Any size, like whatever size you're working on, it's going to work really well too, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're doing little ditty bits of art or larger size journal
these
pages.
are my so these little crosses actually began life when I was carving out of rubber to do my own little, you know, when we were all carving into rubber to make our own stamps, and that's what they've kind of ended up here. So it's really nice. And a lot of these, like the circles, I've literally scribbled with ink to begin the process of getting the shapes. Really, really useful. It's going to be, I think it's going to be my absolute sort of standard go-to, that one. Shall we have a look at this one?
Okay, so stencil number 3 is PS428, and this is the moon one, the moon stencil.
Yeah, I do love all over background stencils. I mean, I just love a stencil. They're just so useful. They're often my starting point for any of the artwork or the samples that I make. This one, I'm also very fond of the moon. I love the moon. I'm always watching for the moon. So I did a little moon and then just rotated it, and it became this all over pattern. Now I'll show you some of my backgrounds for this one. Bear with me a minute, I've got so many.
Well, so there's lots of people asking for a live with the alcohol ink template.
Yeah.
technique.
We can do that. Yeah, definitely do that at some point. We can schedule that, can't we?
Yeah.
Now, I also, as I said, I really, really like the infusions because they are they're a bit unpredictable because they're very, very watery. And what I've been trying is mixing infusions with water in a palette. So not the typical putting the granules on and spraying it with water, mixing it first in a palette, wetting my paper so it's really quite wet, adding some colour and putting the stencil on and then leaving it to dry, and you get this really lovely effect. You can do it with your two colours as well. Then of course I scribbled on here with the white pen, scribble on everything. But this is quite nice because you can also get your subtle backgrounds and then your much stronger backgrounds. So if you're wanting to put an image on a background, you don't always want a really highly patterned background because your image doesn't always sit well on there if you've got too much colour on colour. So you can then get these really subtle as well.
And it's nice how the colour pulls up and creates a really quite sharp outline on the background as well.
And also, if you've had your stencil, say, face down on some bright pink, when you lift it, you've then got pink on your stencil. So then you can put blue down or another colour, whatever, put that stencil on top and you transfer colour on top. So you do then get this mixture. And it's just so unpredictable. I love it. And this one, now this is a background I've just started. And what I've actually got a transparency on the top of this one. So, but can you see the moons peeping through underneath? So I did my background, that was with greens and pinks, some of the, I don't know quite which ones now, with the infusions in just the way I've talked about. And actually then I've put alcohol ink on some, this is the graphics wet media, and I've just laid it up there. And obviously this is ready for a focal point, but I shall finish that at some point. Yeah. Love it. I love that moon, and I just, as I say, I love the all over background one because then you can have anything on there. Let's have a look. I've got a few coloured images in there. These are not quite finished, but
I think we do spend so much time making millions of backgrounds, don't we, before we get started every time.
That's always my starting point, actually. I'll get a stack of backgrounds and then I've got plenty to choose from. But actually some of them, I was doing some this afternoon. I was actually supposed to be setting up the camera to get ready for this evening. But of course, it's a bit like tidying up your craft room, isn't it? The minute you're in there, you get distracted doing something else. So I was making some of these this afternoon. Can we have a look now at the circular one?
Yes. So PS429 is this great circle, which Kate really likes to have this sort of shape for, creates a great focal point, a great, area to put a focal point on top of.
For me, circles always work. They're a really easy, friendly shape. They don't kind of fight with anything else. So you can pretty much put anything on top of circles. They always work. But because this one has such a definite centre, it's a great place for adding your focal image, and everything then is coming out from the centre. So I did that. Let's just find that journal page. And I've got a few extra little samples like that here. Just one moment while I wade through my messy pile. Yeah, and I've done these ones a bit, they're all different. So this one was done with alcohol ink on the gel press, like we were talking about earlier. This one is done with infusions. So you can see how I've got a blue background. I've had pinky on the stencil and then flipped it over while it was wet, so the blue has picked up the pink, and that gives you a little bit more of a subtle effect. And because of that circle in the middle, it's just a perfect place and it really highlights your image.
Gorgeous. And you wouldn't have to use all of it either. Like, you could just apply the colour on 2/3 of the stencil and create, there's all sorts of ways that stencil's going to be.
I can show you some examples of that. So this one, I love that. I love things that are imperfect. So it's not a perfect print. It wasn't a perfect background, it's all kind of broken up, but that actually is a really useful background because it's not too patterned, it's not too colourful, so an image will sit really comfortably on the top there.
And those dark sections right in the centre are just stunning, how they, you know, point towards the focal. They're just fabulous.
The infusions, as I say, they're unpredictable. If I tried to do that again, I probably couldn't, you know. It's one of those. This one is with alcohol inks, and I flooded it a little bit, but I still quite like it. So,
when
you know, I kept that
scribble
one
on top.
Yeah, that's right. There's a bit of scribble, I always think solves anything. Now this is interesting. I tried, hang on, let me just, let's get some white card a minute. So this is the graphics, the wet media, the Duralar, and it's a bit like acetate, but it takes water-based products. So I wanted to see if I could play about with infusions on here. Now, if you put infusions on ordinary acetate, it probably wouldn't sit very well. It would bead up a little bit. But can you see how it's picked up that in a really subtle way? But it's nice for layering. So here's one. Look, it came out very, very pale. But at some point, I'll probably, it's quite hard because it's shiny.
Yeah, but that's amazing, isn't it? It just breaks all the rules. So it's it's almost like a non-porous shiny surface, if you like, because it does accept non-permanent media.
Yeah, and it's just really nice to think that you can use your infusions on there as well, and it adds real depth to that background. And then, you know, you start to add everything on the top. So it's fun to play with.
Yeah, really good.
I've just seen a question. How would you stick the Duralar down onto card? Just a regular glue, such as like something like a Yoo-hoo would sticks it. And I also stitch mine. You don't have to stitch, but
staples.
Even if I'm stitching, I would glue it a bit first. Otherwise, it's kind of moving around.
Yeah, and sometimes it's one dot of glossy accents or a staple. Can
something like that.
Down.
Yeah, and even if I do glue it, I would just put a tiny dot in each corner. That's just enough to hold it. Right, get rid of that white card, it glares a bit. So on here you can see, I'll just go back to this one. So here's that kind of wheel shape, and she's on just a painted background. So I've used the frescoes, but just roughly with a paintbrush, and then added that on the middle just to kind of frame that little image there.
So yeah, if you hadn't looked at the stencil, I don't know that people would have twigged that you've used that stencil in the background on that sample.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you have a lot of backgrounds out in front of you, you'll see something that catches your eye and you think, oh, that just fits on there. Whereas if you start creating and do something start to finish, I find that much harder. Because quite often I've just grabbed something that was within sight and it just kind of fits there. And so yeah, it's about having a few backgrounds ready. I think that was really helps. Actually,
okay, so that's
can I just show you on this one as well? So when I did this one, this is just going back to the moon. You can probably see just little bits of it here. I've just sponged through. So I sponged some white paint through the stencil, and the moon is on that one as well.
So Lynn, Wobbly Lynn,
Wobbly Lynn.
She's saying, I knew there's a reason I bought all that Duralar. And she also asked, is that the same product that you used on one of the samples you showed earlier? We'll come back to that sample, I think, again anyway, Lynn, so you will see it later on.
Yeah, if not, we can pick up questions at the end maybe, and I can go back to things.
Okay, so we're moving on to stencil PS430. And actually, one of the things that you can't tell when you're watching a live is how thick the stencil material is. So we use quite a heavy stencil mylar compared to most companies. And the reason is because we're mixed media people. We like things that are quite robust. And so we deliberately chose to work with a mylar that's a bit thicker. Obviously, if you know our grunge paste, when you put that through, you get quite a nice raised effect from it. So that's, and also I liked that the thicker mylar it's much easier to clean your stencils. You can scrub away at them and you're not going to crimp and crinkle them and bend them. So that's a little bit that you can't tell from me holding up the package like that. But this is PS 430.
But you definitely can. So this is one that I've been using. You can tell, yeah, it's very, very sturdy and nice to use. You can definitely feel the difference. So this is the final stencil, I think.
Yep.
And this one, again, just to show you where ideas come from, this is my, one of my little doodle books that I sit and, you know, if the TV is a bit boring, for instance, I will probably just be sitting doodling as I'm watching, and then you can see actually how that one just became that pattern there. I think it's just interesting to see where designs come from. And this, again, a lot of this is done with alcohol inks. And the interesting thing as well, the more prints you take with alcohol inks, if you're using it on your gel plate, is that you get very strong first prints, and then they get a little bit more wishy-washy, a little bit more gentle. But it just makes all that great all over pattern. This is, see, this is a later print. You can see that one is much more subtle.
Gorgeous.
And let's see if there'll be plenty with these in the background. Let's see if I can find one. Oh, here we've got one, look, behind my flying house. There it is. Okay. So I've used one of the more gentle ones because I didn't, you know, if I'm putting my image on the top, I don't want it to be battling, but I've used it behind there.
I love the sample. We'll come back and explain to you where all the stamps are from shortly. So we're just going to run through the stencils and the backgrounds, and then we'll take you through the minis and the large stamp sets. So there's heaps. What Kate wanted to do is show you all the backgrounds and the starting point. We thought it was quite useful to start with the stencils so you can kind of get a sense of how the layers are built up. And then when we move into the samples, it will all make a bit more sense.
Yeah. And actually you see them, all of these little bits here that I've mounted my designs onto, these are all taken from things just like this. And I've just layered them up to create my backgrounds that I put the focal images on.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the minis then, I think, aren't we?
Let's do it.
Right, so within the minis, Kate's got some background minis as well, so mark making. So I'm going to put the first three up because on the here on my, so you can see them. And then she'll show you how she's used these three in her samples. Oops.
Yeah, so with the minis, we went for a balance, didn't we? We wanted some kind of texture or mark stamps, and then we wanted some focal stamps, and then we wanted a quote. So there's a balance there within the minis. And
so each mini is mounted onto Easy Mount, and it clings to the back of the index sheet, and it's red rubber.
Yeah, and actually when I'm working normally at home, these background ones are the ones that for me will end up loose in a basket, because these are the ones that I'm reaching for all the time. Now this scribble, it's no secret that I absolutely love a scribble. I scribble all the time. I scribble on top of my backgrounds, I scribble designs, and this one I literally did with a glass dip pen and some calligraphy ink, and I scribbled this, which then became the stamp. This one is really so useful for, let me just, oh, here we go. So useful for grounding an image on. So when you do a lot of like quirky little figures and things for your stamps, they need to stand on something so that they're not floating in the air. So I've used it here along the bottom, and I'm sure there'll be more with it like that. Let's have a look. I've also, let me see if I can find, I've got so many samples I'm getting. Here we go. I've also, see how she stood on it here, but I've also stamped it in red just around the edge, so building in that border so you can see it here as well. So not
and
using
the numbers
the whole
are there
stamp,
as well.
just,
You can see the
yeah,
numbers
and
there too.
yeah, so the numbers are in there as well. Now when I use stamps like this on a background, I don't want to stamp that kind of rectangle shape. What I want to do is use it unmounted usually, and then just roll it a little bit. So I bring in a little bit, and here I've stamped it in the red because I was working on that kind of red pink background, but very often I'll bring it in with a little bit of black as well. Here's an example of that, look. So not the whole stamp, just kind of rolling it in a little bit. You can see it in
sort of
red
bend
as well,
don't you? You sort of
and you know these are all the these are all the kind of background marks that you don't really notice, but you'd miss them if they weren't there. This is what is kind of building up all the layers and the complexity that's there, but it's just such an easy way to do that. So this scribble is going to be, I think, one of my go-tos. Oh, it's here as well, look. So just hidden under here, and that's giving the birdies something to stand on. So it's that's going to be one of my favourites, I think, is one of my most used. And of course, circles, again, you can't go wrong with scribbly circles. We did include, I'll just show this now, we did include this larger you know, all the marks here, but they are different. So we've included different ones. So on this larger set, it's the alphabet. On the smaller set, going vertical, so the other way, it's the number set. So they are different. So there's plenty there to play with. And these circles appear as well, often on edges, just kind of peeping in there. Oh, and this one here, look, just peeping in there. So again, it's just about building up all of those layers.
So the codes on these are KCM, which stands for Cape Crane Mini, and the number 001, 002, 003. So this first release is going to be a little bit confusing because the large stamp set codes are KC in the number. So you're going to have KC 001 and the minis are KCM. Kate won't do minis every single release. So over time, she'll end up with probably less minis and more of the bigger stamp sets. But I'm just pointing that out to you because it is a little bit confusing for this first release.
Okay, so I'll just move these to one side. And then if we can have a look at
some of the little characters.
Yeah, now this little swordfish guy or girl, I don't know actually, I don't know what it is, but it's a little bit confusing because it doesn't fit the right way on the packaging, and we kind of knew that, but we liked it, we wanted to include it. And this is, you know, just how my head works. It makes perfect sense for a swordfish to have something hanging off the sword, so he's got the little heart there. Let's see if I can find, oh, so here it is, look, on a background, and then it just says sharing the love. Now we're starting to look a little bit closer at images. I've used a mixture of some of my images in these, all of these samples might be coloured with watercolours. Some of them are coloured down with infusions, but I've watered them down in a palette and then used them almost like a watercolour. This one was coloured with my tints. And I've discovered how easy it is to colour in with my tints. I was demonstrating that as well at a weekend show, and yeah, people were really warming to it, could see how easy it was to colour in, and you can still get your really bright colours. So there's a little swordfish, and of course with one of the quote stamp as well, sharing the love. Or
So there's
it could have,
4 quotes on that stamp.
yeah,
There's sharing the love, my heart is yours, come and join the arty party and take flight.
yeah.
So take
So,
flight is what Kate used on the little fluttering house.
yeah, I'll show that in a minute, yeah. So it could have been, equally on this one, it could have been my heart is yours. Okay.
And when you
just,
get these, they will be together like this, but you just need to take some scissors and just snip them apart. We didn't trim them all apart because we'd lose them all when we're trying to bag them up.
No,
so
that makes total sense. And you'll also see the little texture stamp as well, stamped in the background here. So the little numbers 1 from earlier. So there's the swordfish, but I think, let me see, I've got another sample with him on somewhere. Or her, I don't know what it is. Oh,
it's a Valentine swordfish.
So this is on a little mini moo. I love making mini moos. And these are very specific size, actually. They're 2.8 by 7 centimeters. I usually trim to 3, that's close enough for me. But look at that, really cute, just fits on there. Look, these were very popular to trade a few years ago, along with the ATCs and things. So people were trading mini moos. Yep. So there's the swordfish. Now, okay, silly birds. Now this one, let me find. I'm buried in samples here. Hang on, let me find it. There's that one. Oh, here we are. So this one, I just coloured the birdie in twice, and then I chopped it in half so that it was facing the front here, but its rear end is here. Look, and it makes it look like a row of birdies. And because it looks like they're all marching somewhere, I've added that little quote, come and join the arty party. It's just a bit of fun, these silly birds.
About 3 inches or about 7.5 centimeters, if you're wondering the size.
Yeah, actually I made that one. So I'm very fond of my traveller's journal. And it has this kind of accordion fold pull out inside. And oh no, it wasn't that one. Hang on. Which one went in? Oh no, it was that one. So some of these have been made to fit my journals, but you know, to show them as samples, I tend not to stick them in. But here's the other silly bird. I think he looks a bit regal on here. He looks a bit like the king bird.
Crown, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's kind of stance. He looks quite important, with his little wings. And these are from the house set, the bigger set that we'll look at later. So I've put him over a load of the little toadstools, and all the backgrounds are using the stencil with the prints that I showed you before. And again, there's the little texture. Look, so you don't see that initially when you look at it, but it's there. So there's the other birdie on there. I just love silly birds. I just love silly creatures, really.
Fran from Frantic Stamper just said with the birds, you could extend the body and make them super, super tall.
Oh, you could. You definitely could. There's somebody who's thinking in the same quirky way that I do. And what's the other menu?
It's number 7 with the school of fish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, here they are. These are really, really teeny tiny and cute. And I've coloured these again. I've coloured them with my tints. So what I did for this one, because these are so small, I mean, you could still cut them out individually because they are a relatively simple shape. So, but I didn't on this one. I stamped them just onto a piece of card, and I've coloured around them with the blue Matins. I can't remember what its official name is. Leandra,
Dragonfly.
Okay, so I've coloured around it, and then I've coloured each little individual fishy with the coloured Matins. I always add a bit of extra shading though at the end. You'll notice there's some really dark areas on there, so I always add that little bit of depth. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of crossover here, so I've got extra stamped bits from the larger stamp sets, the stamp set that we'll look at in a minute. The background is all from the stencils.
Gorgeous. I love that.
Really cute,
and
little
it's going to be very tempting to cut them all apart. I don't know, that might be a craft knife job. They're just a little bit too tight, probably, but it is possible. If you bend the rubber and then snip, I mean, gosh, you guys are masters of fussy cutting, so if you can do that, you can probably do this. But yeah.
Well, to be honest, what I'd probably do is just stamp them and then cut them out individually.
Exactly.
Because they, you know, apart from there's the little fins, or quite often they're a heart shape, but they're a relatively straightforward shape to cut out.
Yeah,
so
you can see on the
them,
stamped image that it would be quite easy to do that.
And the matins worked really well on there, because the matins are very easy to control when you're colouring. So I love watercolours, but they do tend to run away with you a bit sometimes, whereas matins were fairly stable when you're using them to colour in, and that just worked really nicely on there.
And with the matins, because they're a matte, it's very easy to come over the top of them with your white paint pen again and add little spots and dots.
And you can lay them.
Because they're 100% transparent, they don't diminish the dark stamped lines if you've stamped your image in black. So there's a few benefits to using those for colouring. And they're permanent, of course. So how are you guys doing? You're hanging in there? You're enjoying the release so far? Thanks for joining us, everyone. So if you are late to the party, it's Kate from Kate Crane, who's here with her first release with us for Paper Artsy, and I'm Leandra, one of the owners of Paper Artsy. So thanks for joining us tonight. And we've just shown the stencils, we've gone through the minis, and I think we're hitting the big time. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. They're delightful, aren't they? They're absolutely delightful, all these stamps. Okay, so we're going on to the bunnies. So this is KC001, Kate Crane stamp set 01, and it's the bunny set.
Yeah, when it's funny, I think I said this in my blog post. Whenever I draw, and I've literally been drawing all my life, just doodling, you know, that sort of drawing, I always tend to draw things with elongated bodies or unusual body proportions, or like in this case, the unfeasibly large ears and this very long straight body. This one had a few little modifications along the way. Leandra wanted him to be a little bit more nerdy, so we made him more nerdy.
Well, I just thought it fitted nicely with the numbers. You had the numbers, you know, all over the body, and so I thought,
so that's right. So we did that. And one thing about the eyes, you know, eyes, let me see if I can get that a bit closer. Eyes are quite tricky sometimes with a stamp, because if you actually put the pupils in, it can make things look a bit weird. They can be a little bit harsh. So I deliberately didn't, because it's so much easier to add a little bit of personality. And just by I've put a tiny, tiny dab of blue in there. That was actually the matins in there. And that's just enough to give the eyes. I think I did on this one as well. Yeah, just a tiny bit of colour in there. It gives the pupil without it looking a bit too harsh. So there you can see how I've layered that bunny. I think I did this one maybe in watercolours, but I always tend to colour in the same way. So I never colour in the whole image. I always do these little pools of colour. So whether I'm colouring in watercolours, the infusions, or the matins, I kind of colour the same way. And for me it works because my backgrounds are always very dense, very colourful, and then if you put something on the top that's also being coloured very dense, it doesn't sit very well. So I like to leave quite a lot of white space. And actually, if you look closely at the face, there's quite a bit of shading around the edge, but mostly it's left untouched. Now when I design the stamps, let's see if we can just see on here, you might be able to, I tend to put in quite a lot of little shading dots, so that when you go to shade your images, it's almost done for you, so you kind of know where to go in with those darker areas. And then here, this little tiny one again, so this is another little moo, and I always think as well, no stamp is too large to go on something. You just trim off the bit. As long as you've got the main bit, like the face with the eyes, everything else can be trimmed off there. So there's a couple more things on here. So we're bunting, because I always think bunting finishes off any any kind of project. You sometimes just need something in your corner to balance things out. I've got a sample with, let me have a look.
Oh, it's in yellow.
Oh, I've got it here. You can see I've just brought it in on the edge here. This little kind of vine. And then another texture one, because you can't get enough texture stamps. They are key. And then cute little quote, I'm all ears. And hear with your ears, listen with your heart, just to finish things. And at the bottom here, you can see it says, I'm all ears.
It's gorgeous. I love it. I just love it. And also the other thing to note is just that the width of the bodies of the two bunnies are different sizes, and that's kind of fun as well, because it just means that they look super cute. And I've done a sample. Joe and I are going over to America to teach for one of the stockists over in an event in early May for Simon Says Stamp. And I've used this as my make and take, but I have done exactly what Fran said before, and I've elongated the body. So I've used the little words and everything. I can't show you the sample because they've all been sent off, and I shipped them yesterday. I haven't had a chance to make them again. So you have to wait.
Yeah. I'm sure people will start playing with things and sharing it with us soon anyway.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah. Okay, so let's put bunnies to one side. And what's next? Oh, Dolly.
Yep.
I know, again, I want to show you where this one originated. Let me see if I can find it. Now, this might be hard to believe, but this was a little doodle I was doing. I think I was talking to my mum on the phone and just doodling. And I did this kind of little figure. And then I didn't want to bin it because I actually quite liked it. So I cut it out and it's stuck in my little journal. But this, and the idea of having like a little doorway or a window inside the body, kind of evolved into this. So on the stamp set, you'll notice that the doll bodies have a little empty spot here. That's because any of these will fit inside the body. So you can stamp them direct on there, or you could cut them out and then maybe raise them with a little 3D little sticky fixer or something. So you see on these are kind of partly coloured. Again, I was doing these at a show, so I end up with lots of like half kind of done things. But you see here, so this one's got like a little heart. This one's got the star. And then on this journal page, she's got the little birdie standing there. But also, all of these little shapes that you can cut out here, you can also use them as they are. So look, I've hung it here. So it's a little hanging down thing. I don't really know what it is, but it just kind of balanced the image on here.
It's like a little light.
Yes, it's something like that, isn't it? So I quite often get asked things like that when people look at my art and say, yeah, but what is it? I'm like, I don't know. But I've done them here. Look, I've included, and I did them almost like as little plants growing. My husband said they look like balloons. Yeah. And actually these ones I've coloured in with infusion, so watered down in a palette and just added that shading in the colour with infusions.
Now, depending on which munchkin at Paper Artsy HQ is trimming the stamps, some of them trim them and you'll get it and it will come in one piece like this. But some others of us trim each of these out individually. So it just depends on who's trimming. Sometimes if I'm trimming, I trim them all out individually. If Hugo's trimming, he leaves them attached like this. But then actually, look, this is kind of cool too, because you could put them on your acrylic block and evenly space them like that.
Yeah, I think mine were individual, but
yeah,
it doesn't really matter again, because you can...
you just snip them apart. Look, don't be scared to cut your stamps. You can just, look, honestly, you just take your, I mean, I know these are the biggest scissors in the world, aren't they? But you just, it's super easy. That it's not a problem to cut them like that.
So let's move on. What's the... Oh no, one
Number
other
3.
thing I was going to say. Let me just say one other thing about that one, because yeah, here. I added these little strips, almost like washi tape strips here.
I love
so
those.
You can use those separately. So here, look, I've just used that as a little border. But if you did want to elongate the doll's body, you can just add extra little strips and just make her a little bit taller.
That's what I did. I use those strips,
Design those almost like washi tape, really.
I used those strips, and I also used the bunting out of set number 4 coming up, and I used the numbers out of that previous set. And as you can see, we do tend to trim these quite close. We always trim our stamps really close, and so that means that when you put them on an acrylic block together, they sit quite nicely.
Yeah. Oh yeah, nice. Yeah. Another useful one, isn't it? Those kind of little extras.
Really useful.
So what's next? Is it fish?
It's the fish.
What is not to love about fish?
Oh, they're just adorable.
See this one here. I like this one. It's a little bit ambiguous. So I've put the whale. So actually, talking about stamps being together, these two in the middle are attached, kind of facing each other. But yeah, I snipped mine apart. I did. I snipped mine apart. So here I've got one of them. Look, and the whale. Who's a dishy fishy? But this one I quite like it because I can't decide if they're greeting each other or if the whale is about to swallow him.
All I can think of is, do you remember that TV program in England like a million years ago when the boat comes in?
Oh yeah, I do remember, yeah.
When the boat comes in. Well, that's all I can think of is every time I read the Who's a Dishy Fishy, I can go, who's a dishy fishy? And nobody except English people who are really old are going to get that.
I mean, they're a little bit random, but you can also use them. So here on my journal page, what I decided to do was, stamp this one out several times, and they're all the same. So I've coloured them all the same. And then I did this one, stand out different colour, swimming the other way. And then I've used the quote that's on the stamp set, keep swimming, keep swimming. To show, for my journal page, it was about, if you swim against the current, swim against the flow, do your own thing, keep going. So that's why I did that one as kind of stand out. And it's funny, this keep swimming. I think it started off years ago when Nemo was a film when my kids were really little.
Just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. And actually, it's been my go-to. And whenever things have got hard, when my kids were growing up, exam time, dissertation time, that was my standard response to them, was keep swimming, keep going. So I really actually like that quote. I've used it a lot. But the other thing, one of my next journal pages with the fish, I was thinking, yes, it's okay to say, swim against the flow kind of thing. But also I want to do one with a load of fish swimming in the same direction, because I think there's also power in, finding your tribe, finding your fellow weirdos to hang out with, all swimming together. So I'm going to do a journal page with that as well. And here's one, look, on another little moo. These are such a great way for using, all your tiny scraps that you end up with. And all I've done is cut it in half. So now it looks like two fishies swimming.
They're gorgeous.
They're just a real,
they've got so much personality. They really have.
Yeah,
character. This one kind of looks a little bit moody, and a little bit like a bit of a teenager fish.
Yeah.
This one looks a little bit confused. It's sort of like, where was that party I'm supposed to be going to? Am I late? Am I going to be late?
And of course, as well, you've got the extra quotes on there. So catch me if you can. I was quite like that when I'm, doing anything. They could be sort of chasing, and then your bubbles, which is makes a really. In fact, the bubbles will be stamped on the background here somewhere. Yeah, there they are.
Okay, so we've got a few questions. I need to go back through the questions because I haven't been watching
I'm afraid
very closely.
I've missed them all. As well. But yeah, I'm going to go back.
So, okay, so Joanne says, love all your images. Going to have so much fun with these. Loving the samples. Kim from De Hobby Studio, one of the stockists in the Netherlands, is saying that. Wobbly Lynn, she said the kids, Munchkins must get sore hands trimming all those stamps so close to the edge. We have a machine that we do it with, Lynn, so it's a bit like using a sewing machine in a way, except it's a blade. So it's the best job. Everybody enjoys it because you just put on your headphones, listen to a podcast, and stand there trimming. So it's one of the most enjoyable chill out jobs, even though we trim quite fast. So it's very satisfying trimming stamps. That's how we get so close.
I noticed somebody, I think it was Lynn, also said, did it freeze for everyone? I think that might have been me.
Oh.
I walloped my phone, sent it spinning, and then it got a bit cross with me for saying you can't rotate while you're filming, but I've got it back, I think.
So Georgiana says, do you stitch on the Mylar? So, you know, like the Duralar film.
Do you know, I tend to stitch on everything. I use a regular sewing machine, just with a regular needle, nothing special. I got mine really cheap at one of those supermarkets that do special offers when they open and things. And I nearly always add stitching, but it's mostly decorative. It's not functional. So I would nearly always glue it a bit in place first. I stitch through. Yes, so the Duralar, that layer, I'll stitch through that. That's really sturdy stuff. You can stitch through that easily. Yeah, I stitch everything, but it's decorative. That's all. Yeah, see, I've stitched through everything there. The worst it will do is blunt your sewing machine needle, and I tend to keep a separate machine, a cheap machine, and try not to sew through wet glue because your machine won't like that. Okay, shall we have a look at the little houses?
Yes, so this is KC004. This at the top here, we actually do trim those apart so that you can use the word sentence on its own and the bunting on its own. Yeah. Again, you might find, depending on who's trimmed it, it's slightly attached at the top, but generally it might, I don't know, depends who does it.
Yeah, and somewhere I do have, I'm just looking for, I've got a sample with that bunting on somewhere. Well, you know, I can't find it now, but I did have. It'll be on the blog post, I think. So, yeah, the house. Now, all these different little houses down here I designed. Now, this little one on a hill, I've coloured these. I've got several of them there, look, 5 or so. And I've coloured those with the Matints, again, leaving all this white space. And then I've kind of placed them almost like a mandala around the edge. I thought that was just a bit of fun, and I've stitched them. They are stuck up 3D actually, and then I've just stitched around them. And then this is the bunting off the rabbit set.
Yeah.
Yeah, but rather than stamp them in a straight line, I've stitched them on and kind of put them on that curve. But yeah, just a little bit of fun there. And that's the background with all the colour that was built up with all those texture stamps and the texture stencil. And then on here, so I put these 3 houses in a row, and actually from the quote take flight, this is why I decided to cut one house off the hill and have it flying off. I've given it little wings and then take flight. And these ones I've stamped out on some backgrounds made with infusion. So I haven't actually coloured these in, I've stamped them on a coloured background and then cut them out. But you will perhaps see there's a bit of texture stamped on there as well.
So you've got some of the numbers from the minis and other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, I have. And then, so there you'll see the row of the little toadstools there. And that's where the, you know, King Bird is surveying his kingdom, and the toadstools I've put on there. I just think you can't go wrong with houses. I've just always loved houses. Houses of all kinds, little toadstools, tall houses. I think as well, it's one of the first things you draw as a child, isn't it? You draw your little square house with a roof and your windows and things. And I think, oh yes, I have. I've got some more samples here. There we go, a couple of little moos again. So when I say there's no stamp is too big, you just cut a bit off. You just use the bit. Can you see I've trimmed it right down there? And then the little house on a hill, it's coming off the edge. You can still tell it's a house on a hill.
Fabulous.
Oh, Annie's there as well. I think I must like this one. I've used this one quite a lot.
Oh, they're all lovely, and I love all the detail on the bunting, you know, like the little spots and dots on the stripes on the bunting. It's just perfect for adding details, colouring details.
I think sometimes when you're putting an image on a page and, you know, you've got your main focal bit, but sometimes it just needs something to balance it. So here I've balanced it in that opposite corner. I'm still looking for that other sample. I did have another one. No, it's gone. I can't find it now. But sometimes as well, this one, I've literally just cut triangles out of my leftover and I've stamped a texture on there. So again, it's balancing. So this is when bunting is really useful, when you just need something to balance in that opposite corner.
I knew I'd seen some bunting in yellow somewhere. That was it.
Yeah, I've got one on a sample somewhere, but I can't find it right now. I'm slightly in chaos, which is my norm, to be fair. Okay, should we have a look at that last stamp?
Last stamp. Okay, so this is the mark making stamp set. So what we decided was that we'd include this idea as a Kate's Basics set, because when Kate creates, as you've seen now from her backgrounds, not only with her stencils, but she adds to them a lot with all these sorts of little stamps and extra mark making type stamps. So they're super useful to build up detail in the background. And even the stripe thing, the long stripe, there's all sorts of ways. You just use a part of it, bend it and use a part. I'm addicted to using these little circles. I've used them loads, and these ones here. And also I like that there's the pluses and the crosses. Everything, just everything is super useful. And that is, you were mentioning how the words, it's different to the numbers on mini number one.
So we've got like horizontal alphabet here and then vertical numbers on the little mini.
Yeah.
And when I did these, I literally, again, I got out my dip pen and ink, because that's how I do those marks in the first place very often, and or printed. And with these crosses, you'll notice something. They're not all perfect, and I wanted to keep that in because that's real, so it's not too neat. There is all the little kind of slightly blobby bits and the splats, so it's really kind of a real, that's how it is. And here I've literally scribbled circles with ink. This one I got a very fine paintbrush to draw those lines with ink, and it kind of missed a bit, and I like it. That's real. That's how it looks. Now, one of my favorite ways, hang on, I'm going to try and do this without knocking my camera this time. So here I've got some just old ledger paper, and I often do this. I just stamp and cover the whole sheet. I've always got collage then, and you can see how much I use it. Look, and it gets torn and broken down bits here, and that appears on nearly everything. So those little stripy bits there that are missing are here, and that's what the bird is standing on top of that scribble. So nearly everything will have bits. There's another bit here, look. These little stripes underneath will have come from here as well. So it's just a really useful way to always have some stamped out. You've always got bits to tear and to use. It really is on everything. Look, there's a bit behind here, a strip behind with the alphabet on. And here. And what's nice is if you were wanting to add a little bit just like that, like a little torn off bit to a project, it means you don't have to get your ink bottle out, your pen out, make all the marks just to do that strip. You've got it all here and ready. You can just tear bits off to use. But I also direct stamp with them, of course I do. I think, again, these are going to be ones for me that will end up just loose in a basket, along with the other ones, the little minis, because they're the ones that I'm going to be reaching for all the time. So again, it's like adding the little circles. And again, they are on everything. If you look closely at my samples, they're kind of everywhere. All those little bits of text. Let's see if we can find something on here. It will be. Well, I think that's the numbers one. That might be the mini. But here, like, oh, it's just everywhere. It really is. They're the go-tos. Okay.
Okay, so we did have a question which both of us missed, but it looks like Dunia picked up on it, from Diana, who was saying, for us newbies, what's the difference between matints and infusions and frescoes? So let me just do a quick explanation in case other people want to know as well. So frescoes are our core chalk paint line. These are generally an opaque paint, but they don't have to be. If you have a brighter color, it can be more translucent. And so we always hand paint a chevron on the front so that you can see the exact color and how opaque it is. A recent, very new product for us is matints. And matints, there's 8 colors at the moment. The first 4 were quite grungy and rustic sort of colors, and the second 4 are much brighter. Now these are a glaze, but because it's matte, it's not a shiny glaze. So it's a sealant, it's a glue, and it's tinted. And we brought this product out because we thought it would be really fun to use with our printed tissue paper, because you can use it as an adhesive, but it's also a great way to color tissue paper. And it's also turned out to be an amazing way to color stamps and images, because as I mentioned before, because it is transparent, it doesn't diminish the black stamped lines. So it's really, really nice product to use. And because it's got a matte finish, it doesn't have that shiny effect. So you can still work over the top with coloured in pencils, colouring in pencils, or your markers, or your paint pens, or your Uniball white Signo pens, that kind of thing. Now, if you work on a watercolor paper or with lots of water, you're going to get a much looser, watery effect. So it almost can be a bit like a watercolor. Or if you work on a normal card, then you just get normal effect, like that sample you're holding up there, Kate. I think is that you used lots of water with them, didn't you?
Yeah. I tend to go on with a neat colour, and then I clean off my brush and just blend out the edges so it doesn't go too blocky. But they're super easy to colour with, actually. And you can layer them up so you can still get your really intense colour. Yeah.
If you want to know more about the matints, it was topic number 2 on the Paper Artsy blog for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So the last 3 or 4 weeks of blog posts are all our bloggers exploring different techniques, and we really ask them to challenge themselves and try and come up with different techniques and ideas. So there's lots and lots of information on the blog about the matints. Now, infusions, I don't think I've got a bottle that I can lay my hand on right here at the moment. Okay, cool. Infusions are a 2-part powder product. And the part 1 is walnut and part 2 is the dye. So they're color and walnut, every single one of them. So when you add water to them, like you can sprinkle them onto card, and you only need the tiniest amount because they're very, very concentrated. And you can sprinkle them onto wet card or dry card. You can spray them with water. You can slosh them with water. You can mix them up in spray bottles if you want, and you'll get a brownie blackcurrant. Megs Woodcock, who's also in the chat, click on her profile and find her YouTube. She uses them a lot. And we've got various bloggers that do use the infusions heaps. And they are controllable by how much water and when and how you dry them. You're going to get a different effect if you blot them compared to if you dry with a heat tool. If you use lots and lots of water, you're going to get a completely different effect to if you only use a little bit of water. So they're quite an unpredictable product, but they've got that vintage effect because they've always got the walnut crystal in there. And then the companion product that goes with that, which is also relatively new, is called Just Walnut. And so that is the walnut component only of the infusions. And so if you just want a lovely, beautiful sepia brown to make anything more vintage looking, then the Just Walnut is ideal to mix up in a water bottle and sprinkle or spritz it or splat it or splot it onto your ledger papers to make them look more vintage. So that's the rundown on those products.
Perfect. Leandra, I could just see a question popped up there. Jean was asking, where can you get the products? If you go to the Paper Artsy blog, there is a tab at the top that says stockists, and that's all international word-wise stockists. And Jean, the link is in my Facebook group as well. And so Jean, you can go on there and find links to any stockists. I think when you look at the samples here, you can see, so the frescoes, the paint gives you this kind of opaque background, and I've coloured in a lot. I did have a background, I don't think I've got it here though, with the tints, but they're great for the colouring in. So here we have tints, and then there you've got fresco, so you can see quite a difference. All super fun to play with though.
Okay, so let's just do a quick run back through the products so that you can see them, and then we'll just flip the cameras up so you can see our faces and say goodbye as well. Okay, so we've got, starting with the minis that I've got on the desktop here. So you've got 1, 2, and 3 are these lovely backgroundy mark making minis. You've got the quote mini, which is KCM006. You've got the 2 fishy ones, which are KCM7 and 8. And then we've got the gorgeous little frilly birds, or what do you call them? The crazy birds. You've got, they're just cute as, I love them. Numbers 4 and 5, KCM 4 and 5. In the larger stamp sets, we've got the rabbits, KC 001, the bunny rabbits. 002 is the girls. 003 is the fish. 004, KC004 is the houses. And 005 is the mark making set. Now, I know that our stockists around the world, we have been shipping these for 3 weeks. We are still shipping. We've still got a handful of stockists whose orders are going out this week, but most of our stockists have got them, or they're on the way, even down under. And I just saw Jennifer Cooper from Crafters Cupboard, who is here. Michelle McCosh from Florida, who is Everything Scrapbook and Stamp. She's here and dropped her link. In the Tutincole in France, I have seen Création from France as well. Luby Crafts, that's Lisa Gretton. She put a link in there before. Jean, you were asking for a UK stockist. I also saw James from Stampers Grove, and Ben from Art from the Heart, and Jenny from The Artistic Stamper was also in here. Frantic Stamper, she is in Oregon in the US. And I know that Paper and Ink usually are here, but they're on holiday this week. They just had a big show this weekend. Paper and Ink in Canada have got them, so have Scrap Addicts, so has Scrapbooking Fairies, and Scrapbook Central. Down under, you've got Natalie May, you've got the Scrapbook Store and Scrapbook Superstore. One's in Perth, one's in Sydney. And you've also got Jen, who's at Crafters Cupboard in Melbourne. I'm just trying to flick through the comments while I see this. Who did I miss? Oh, in the Netherlands, we've got Helma. She was in here. We've got Hobby Art and Marlus in Germany, and Stampolois Munich. She usually is in here too, I think. Oh, Donna, Top Flight Stamps. Yes, I knew I'd missed somebody who I saw in the chat. But like I said, if people haven't seen the live, they will catch the replay and they will leave their links there, and you can go to the blog post where they're all listed at the bottom of Kate's blog post tonight. Okay, so shall we?
And can I just say as well, thanks to everyone for the comments. I've been seeing them flick up. I haven't really had a chance to read them, but I will go back and check them all. Thank you all for your comments and your support. Right. Oh, I've got to try and do this now as well.
Oh, no. Well, it's just nice for people to see us.
Yeah,
that's all.
And work out how to do it.
Flip and twist.
Hang on. Hang on.
It does get a bit I do need to buy a new thing.
Right, okay.
This is where I need my box of tissues to hold me up.
Yeah.
Oh no. So if you could see behind the scenes, it's very, very not professional. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
Yes.
There is a bit of delay because
Thank you.
Kate's in the UK and I'm in France, and so there's always a bit of a delay, but I think that worked pretty well, and you guys got to see so much. And thanks for joining us. It's just lovely to see your comments, and the
really
support has just been superb. It's Kate and I have been sitting on this for months, and it's been a real work in progress, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's just been a lot of fun.
Certainly.
It's been great
it has,
fun working
and
with you.
I'm just so happy to be here, to be able to continue to keep designing, and also with such a great team, and I've had such great support from you all. And again, thanks everybody for their positive comments and feedback. It's been a real joy.
And there's one other little secret treat that actually Kate doesn't even know about. No. Tomorrow night on the blog, Karen Baker is doing a Kate Crane special blog post, and she has got a load of samples which I have seen, and I was making the exciting reels for Instagram today, and I was just like, oh, this is so good.
I didn't know that. Right,
and it's so lovely. I think one of the most exciting things as a stamp designer is when you see other people start to use your stamps,
because
you know how
do it in such a different way. They take it in a really different direction.
And Karen is always super imaginative in how she puts things together. She's similar to Kate in that she likes bright colors. She likes a little bit of white space here and there, but she has probably way more white space than you actually, but she has quite an interesting imagination. So she always comes up with some other little interesting accents and fun things. So look out for that on the blog tomorrow night. I will be sharing it on Instagram, and I'm going to share into the chat Kate's Instagram, and so that you know how to follow her. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Leandra.
Okay.
See you all soon.
See you, everyone.
Bye.